Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Transition Table. I am excited to be back this week with Shawn Richards of Blue Sky Consulting. And Shawn, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll talk about why you're here and what we'd like to discuss.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Diane. I really appreciate the opportunity to just have a conversation with you. But I am primarily a leadership consultant and I do some business consulting as well. And of course, Diane, that's how you and I know each other is some exit planning and some of those kinds of things that we've
Right.
been talking about over the months and years and whatnot. But my focus is really on the leadership development part, especially for emerging leaders. So I like to work with the younger folks and help them get ready for more responsible and senior leadership roles. And whether it's the C suite or whether they want to go start their own thing. So that's what I like to focus on.
Very, very cool. And as we were discussing before, and as my audience knows, one of the key aspects of developing an exit strategy or growth plan is making sure that the business is not completely reliant on the owner. You don't want an owner operator. And I think it would be great to have some insights from you on how you work with young people and where they are in their career or where they are in the business they were working in and how they can add value as they develop professionally.
Oh, yeah. Great question. Emerging leaders are loosely defined, of course, usually between 25 and 35 years old. They are fairly ambitious. They see themselves in the C suite. They are wanting to be there, and they are usually pretty hungry. And they want to climb that ladder, whether it's a smaller company, a family owned business, whatever it may be, but they want to be in those positions. But the other important part is that they want training, they want development, they want opportunities to learn how to be a more successful leader. So what I do is just a simple two-step process. I call it discover and then develop. And the first part is simply to help the individual, the leader, to understand and discover what their leadership style, or as I like to call it, their leadership signature. What's their unique way of leading in the strengths that they have? What do they bring to the table to help a company? Whether it's great vision, great enthusiasm, whether it's great implementation type ideas where they simply, or maybe they simply want to empower others, strengthen others. It could be a variety of things, but we want to discover what our unique blend of leadership strengths are. And from there, we can build a development process that becomes basically customized because now we're saying, okay, Dion, you have great implementation. You love to execute. You love to get things done. Let's build and create and craft a
Right.
development system that will help with that. And that's how we get them ready. And then from the flip side, from the C suite, the CEO, the owner in this case, they're looking at that and they're saying, okay, I've got Dion, I've got Shawn, I've got Bill, I've got Jezebel, whoever else, and they all have these different skill sets. This is what we're looking for in the next generation of leadership for our company. So it makes it much easier to make really good, educated decisions. And you've also prepared your people in a really effective way.
That's that's great. There's always a lot of talk about how different generations behave, act. You talk about, people being hungry, and I know that, I mean, technically we're boomers, but I view myself more as what is it, the Jones?
The Jones or
There's like a
the
group
Gen
like the
Z?
tail end, right
Well,
before Gen X.
yeah, I've got the
And
baby boomers, the let's see, the Gen X. We're probably right in between there somewhere. But
right. And I
yeah,
think, but and I think people talk about a lot, well, the millennials are this, or the Gen Zs are this, or whatever. And I think that that can be limiting. But I am curious because you work with younger people, what do you see in terms of those differences? Because you talked about hunger, and, to the boomers, hunger is, oh, you don't want to pay your dues. So, how do
right.
you address that when you're working with different generations?
It's a great question. Good, clear, old-fashioned communication. That's, what does it mean to be hungry? What does it mean to the baby boomer to be hungry? What does it mean to the Gen Z to be hungry? And to make sure that both sides are aligned, because you bring up a great point, Dion. There are going to, most of the businesses that are looking to exit, if they're family owned, The owners are probably the Gen X, maybe the baby boomers. They're the ones that are looking to exit. Well, they're probably going to be looking to millennials and maybe even Gen Z if they're going to go that young. And there will be some differences in attitudes. There will be some differences in how they perceive work life balance. Our generation, if you want to go back to the 80s, that was kind of the age of the decade of affluence, and everybody was pursuing the almighty dollar. And there was just, I mean, so much pursuit of that. But today's young people, they're a little more focused on that work-life balance. They want to be a little bit more, hey, work is good, and I want to make money, but I also want a life outside of that. And so just having some good open communication to really understand what everybody what their expectations are and where they want
Right.
to go. And so those are some of the questions that didn't used to be asked very frequently, but they're imperative now because especially the millennials and the Gen Z generations, both of them really want open communication. They want to understand, well, when the we used to ask when it's it what's in it for me in terms of money and compensation. They're asking the same question, but with a lot different expectations of the answers, which is what's in it for me besides the money? What kind of other little benefits are there that will make this a great place to work for? Is this have good culture? Is there an opportunity for me to grow and develop and advance, not just in position and title and in money, but in how I can use my skill set and what I can bring to the table? So just having some really good communication and understanding each other on what both sides are expecting is really important.
That's great. And I also think that even if you talk to not the millennials, I'm sorry, the baby boomers and the Gen X, that
Yes.
they're going to say the same thing now. I mean, I remember at the beginning of my career, people who bragged about pulling all-nighters. And I remember there were times where my husband would come home at 2 o'clock in the morning because he was working on projects. And nobody does that anymore. And
No,
I think we've all wised up to the fact that work-life balance is important. And I think that the new generation shouldn't be pushed away for that. Um, I have
agreed.
kids that
Yeah,
are millennials, and yes, they want to work on their own terms, but they are very hard workers and they
absolutely.
produce. And,
Yes.
instead of people whining about the millennials being this, that, or the other, they have to understand if you engage them properly, they will give you way more than you ask for.
Yeah, great point. I'm really glad you brought that up, Dion, because that is true of just about any generation. There are going to be, I mean, let's call it what it is. There's going to be people in every generation that just don't have the same work ethic as somebody sitting next to them.
Right.
But the overall approach is simply one to understand where is that balance for you. You are an individual because you're right. We make that mistake sometimes, all of us, of putting the label on somebody. Well, they're millennial and therefore they must think this way. Well, not necessarily. I mean, generationally, yes, there's probably some ways that they're going to think, but we have to ask the individual and not make assumptions because that doesn't help. It doesn't help to make an assumption and find out you were wrong.
Right. All great answers, good questions. If a business owner is looking to work on some of their junior people, how's the best way to reach you? And I will also put that in the program notes.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Shawn J. Richards, as far as LinkedIn. So you can go LinkedIn and then look for Shawn J. Richards and Blue Sky Business Consulting, or the website is Blue Sky Biz, B-I-Z, consulting.com. And you're always welcome to just reach out and contact me directly and let's find out how we can help.
Wonderful, Shawn. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time at the transition table.